Hello friends and welcome to Ariel's Twilight Years, how to be a really old model. Last month's video was unaccountably popular, I'm not quite sure why, but it gave me confidence to talk about a few more kinky things. So today I would like to talk about things that doms can do that drive me crazy with lust. Now, before I get started on this, I have to say, as always, that this is only my own opinion. I'm not saying that all submissives would like all of these things. These are not things that all submissives would prioritise. This is just me, as a submissive woman, talking about the things that I personally absolutely love. However, that said, I think there are some things in here which are pretty much universal in terms of what people are looking for when they look for any kind of sexual partner. So hopefully in my list there will be a nice mixture of things that are quite idiosyncratic to me and things that are a little bit more universal. And scattered through today's video will be 3 of the hottest things a dom has ever said to me in order of how hot they were, with the hottest thing ever that anyone's ever said to me during a BDSM session right at the end of this video, so stay tuned to hear all about that. Alright, so what doms can do to drive me crazy with lust. 1. I love it when dominants are skilled with the equipment that they are using. Doesn't matter what the equipment is, whether they're rope tops or into flogging or canes or whatever. It's just so nice when a dominant has gone to the effort to figure out how these things work and to have some skill with them. Watching someone kind of fumbling around, not being really sure what they're doing, isn't a great way to inspire confidence, and it is such a pleasure to see someone who is competent with what they're about to do with you. Speaking as a heterosexual submissive, seeing a man who has taken some effort to figure out how to use the equipment he's about to use on you. Yeah, it's very confidence inspiring and therefore hot, because trust is so important in sexual relationships and in BDSM. But that's not to say that you need to somehow have magically become an expert before you do any play with anyone, because I would say that the second part of this point is that it's great if you're skilled with the equipment you're using, and it's great if you're willing to admit when you are not experienced with what you're using. So I'm thinking of an example of someone I was playing with who was very experienced with lots of things, but he wanted to use a spanking implement he had never used before. And I really appreciated it that he didn't pretend he knew what he was doing. He said, I've got no idea how severe this is, let's work it out together. And we had a test session to see how painful it was, how far away he needed to be from me when he was using it, and the fact that he didn't just pretend that he somehow, by dint of being a dom, would magically know how this would all work. It really matters because it builds trust when you are prepared to be honest about that kind of thing. 2. Observational skill. This is so valuable and so sexy when people just notice the effect that they are having on you in a BDSM scene. I love it when, for example, if I'm working or sessioning with someone who is using implements on me, I love it when they notice if something's going too high or too low or is wrapping, so they notice the marks they're leaving on my body and they can adjust as they go. I think quite often people get started in a scene and they get so excited by the whole thing they don't notice that actually the belt whipping they are administering is actually wrapping right round on someone's hip over and over again. It's just great when someone notices that sooner rather than later, and if you're leaving mark on someone's body, there's a very easy way to see if what you're doing to them is what you're intending to do or not. You can just look at the marks and the marks will tell you, are you hitting them where you expected to? Is it bruising more than you thought it was going to? And when people are capable of noticing that sort of thing, even in the heat of the moment, that is very attractive to me, very appealing. I love it if a dominant is good at reading non-verbal signals. It just means that for me, I'm less likely to have to use my safe word, and it's lovely not to have to use it, because although of course everyone should have a safe word, I absolutely believe that, it is quite jarring to have to use it, and most of us would rather not have to, because it feels like it just brings the scene to a grinding halt. And so if I'm playing with someone who can read my non-verbal signals so we never get as far as me having to use my safe word, which by the way is safe word, so that it can never be mistaken for anything else. I just think that is a really nice experience as a submissive. Oh, I love it when dominants ask questions, because objectively I don't think there is any such thing as a good dom or a good sub. All there is are people who are good dominants for a certain type of person or a certain person. I can be a good submissive to an individual if I can figure out what they want and then give it to them. I have at times in my life run into dominants who thought that because they were experienced that they were kind of infallible, and that because they'd successfully dominated or tied up or spanked lots of people before, they didn't need to know anything about me specifically before they launched into their routine of fantastic dominance. And I don't really buy that. I think we're all individuals, and although there are some things that a lot of us would like, also being treated like an individual and having someone actually ask questions and listen when you explain the things that make a scene good for you, I really like the people who are capable of doing that and capable of understanding that they've not played with you before. There's a lot to find out. And of course, this goes both ways. As a submissive, I think the same. I don't know how to magically be the best sub ever for everyone at all. Finding this stuff out is dependent on asking the right questions and listening to the answers. And I really love it when dominants understand that and do it. And I know from talking to some of the people who watch my YouTube videos, I know by now some of you who are watching will be panicking and thinking, oh no, I bet I'm no good at these things, because I think as a quite introspective person myself, I think I attract quite a lot of introspective viewers. I'm not saying these things in order to try to make any would-be doms feel nervous, but I'm glad to tell you that the next one is something that is definitely really easy for almost everyone to achieve. Some of these things are a little more subtle. Certainly stuff like reading people's non-verbal signals comes with practice, but this one is easier to achieve. Just dominants who are clean, who are wearing clean clothes and who smell good. I think the reason this matters so much to me is because BDSM is a really intimate thing to do with someone, whether or not it involves actual sex. And I think most people understand that for sexual activity, being clean and smelling good is really valuable. But I think sometimes people in the BDSM world don't see BDSM as quite as intimate as regular sex, and so from time to time I have encountered people who have not made any kind of noticeable effort to just be clean. It makes you feel very respected when someone has gone to the effort of just looking nice, smelling nice, presenting themselves well, and I really appreciate it, and it's very, very hot. So this is a bit of a difficult one, and I feel as though I have had experiences with quite a number of people who have failed at this particular quality, which is to be able to admit fallibility. And what I mean by that is just you don't have to pretend things haven't gone wrong when they have, and you don't need to blame me for something that you did wrong. It's absolutely fine to drop a gag and say, oh, I'm sorry, this has gone on the floor, let's not use it. You don't need to pretend that you didn't drop it. You don't need to blame me for why you dropped it. You don't have to be God. Submissives don't need you to be absolutely perfect and infallible. We don't need that at all. There are many wonderful doms I have been lucky enough to have encounters with. None of them are infallible, and that is absolutely fine. But the thing that distinguishes the ones who I really appreciate the most from the ones who I maybe wouldn't want to do BDSM with again is that they don't pretend that they never make any errors. And if you can just meet as two human beings who are both fallible, and if you can both acknowledge that, I think you have a much better chance of making each other feel good. Sometimes I think dominants I've met have been trying to stoke their own ego with our session, and as part of this point I think it's worth mentioning what a really, really bad idea it is as a dom to say something like, oh well, my last sub would have been able to do this, or my last submissive wouldn't have complained, or my last submissive had higher tolerance. That's just another version of blaming someone else for something that maybe has gone wrong in your session. And I've certainly had people try to do that with me occasionally in the past if I've mentioned a boundary. I remember I was making a spanking movie with a very experienced top, but he hadn't been in spanking movies before, and so I was doing my very best acting, and he said, "Oh, you're so noisy. None of my other subs would be so noisy." And I thought, well, firstly, I'm not your sub, I'm a co-performer, but also being a good sub in a spanking movie doesn't involve being silent. That's not what the audience that we were shooting for wanted to see. And the fact that he tried to criticise my performance by comparing me to another submissive did not go down well. I kind of think that also goes both ways as well. Like, I would not want to be comparing a dom play partner unfavourably with someone who'd gone before. Just like saying, oh, my ex-boyfriend had a bigger cock or my ex-girlfriend had better tits. It's just, I mean, it's not a very positive way of communicating with your partner. And so this point, admitting fallibility, leads me on to the first of the 3 hottest things a dom has ever said to me during an encounter. He said, "I will never knowingly damage you, but I'll take you right to the edge of it." And just the fact that he said, "I'll never knowingly damage you," like he was acknowledging that potentially he could damage me by mistake, it just really impressed me, because it told me that the person I was playing with wasn't the sort of person who just thought he was automatically right because he was the dom. And I mean, it's quite a threatening thing to say too, which is also why it's hot, but it was really the acknowledgement of being a human who might one day do something wrong and hurt me more than he expected. It really meant quite a lot and was therefore very powerful and very sexy. Number 6, appreciative. When I read Dale Carnegie's book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, the thing that struck me the hardest and which I've held on to for the longest was the idea that honest, sincere appreciation is one of the most valuable currencies we could possibly have as humans. That certainly applies in BDSM. Having honest, sincere and generous feedback from my dominant gives me confidence because it tells me what I can do more of that he will enjoy. And so when someone manages to make me feel good about something I'm doing, I think I become a better play partner as a result. And obviously in BDSM, we are sometimes playing with the ideas of disapproval and punishment and criticism. But when a dom, even if it is in that sort of scenario, if they can inject some praise, sincere praise, into the encounter, into the interaction, I think it's a really beautiful and powerful thing. And that doesn't mean you have to be soft, it doesn't mean you have to pretend to approve of everything I do, but I can't imagine enjoying playing with someone who was consistently disapproving and critical. For me, knowing that I am turning on my dominant is just about the best feeling that there is. So playing with someone who is able to express that is very valuable to me. And that leads me on to my second favourite quote from a dom in the middle of a BDSM encounter, which illustrates the fact that you don't need to approve of everything I do. He said, "I'm going to train you to keep still while I beat you." I wasn't keeping still, which is quite true, but the idea that if I did keep still while he was beating me, that would please him was very motivating. It made me want to learn how to do this and please him. And so I think that's a really good example of maybe temporarily withholding approval, but showing me what I can do that will gain that approval. And then when I did learn to keep still, he was very approving and it meant a great deal. So I would say it does seem to be a thing that dominants tend to think will make their subs respect them less if they're appreciative, but certainly from my point of view, knowing that it's possible to win the approval of my dominant is very exciting. 7. Being trustworthy. Now, I've talked about this before in a slightly different context, but I need to trust dominants in 2 ways. I need to trust that you won't maim or kill me by accident, by having bad technique and doing dangerous stuff, but I also need to know you're not going to maim or kill me on purpose, which is more about your character. Showing yourself to be trustworthy both in and out of the bedroom or the dungeon is going to make me much more likely to want to spend time with you and to potentially eventually play with you. There was someone who I had played with for many years and had a really good relationship with him, and I found out he'd lied to me, and it wasn't a lie about anything really important, but it lodged in my mind, and after that I think I did trust him less, which made me respect him less as a dom, because I think, apart from anything else, lying quite often seems a bit cowardly, and certainly in this situation he lied to stop me thinking badly of him about something, which I wouldn't have thought badly of him for. It told me maybe that he didn't have as much integrity as I thought, or maybe as much courage as I thought, and that did diminish him a little bit in my mind as a dominant play partner. And by the time he lied to me 3 times about, again, unimportant things, really my desire to play with him anymore was absolutely gone. I didn't trust him anymore. I didn't respect him anymore. I didn't want him dominating me anymore. And conversely, the more I feel like I can trust someone, the fewer boundaries I feel like I need to have in place. And for BDSM, that's great. BDSM activity really thrives in an environment where everyone feels safe to really be themselves, to express themselves honestly. And if you want to be trusted by the submissives you want to play with, showing yourself to be trustworthy in other areas of your life, I think, is a really great way to get started. 8. Being polite. Oh, I do find good manners in a dominant gentleman very attractive. I think it's because if you're going to do stuff to me that isn't really seen as polite in wider society, like calling me your bitch or slapping me round the face or tearing off my underwear, maximising the contrast between that version of yourself and the version of yourself that the outside world sees, or the version of yourself that I'm interacting with when we're not playing together, I think it makes you very exciting. Knowing that the non-bedroom/dungeon version of you knows exactly how to behave with good manners, but that you're going to choose to disregard all of that while we're playing together, it's just a very exciting journey. It gives us somewhere to travel to. If you're already quite domineering and brusque and discourteous, the contrast between that and your dominant self probably isn't quite so exciting. And so elaborate good manners in a gentleman, it's one of my favourite things in the world. Sort of man who'd hold a door open for you and then pull your hair, pour my wine and then slap my face, make me cry and then offer me a handkerchief. Light my cigarette for me and then spank me to tears. I don't need my cigarette lit, I don't smoke. Number 9. This is idiosyncratic. This is not what every sub would think, obviously, and this is not even what every submissive woman would think, but I love it when a dominant man is a feminist. The word feminist is becoming quite a problematic word at the moment because what people mean by it can be such a Pandora's box, but if not feminist, at least not sexist. If I get the feeling that your attitude to women is your worldview rather than your kink, I will not want to submit to you because my own feminism is too important to me. I need to be sure that anyone I'm playing with knows that this is a game, that this isn't what all women deep down want. I need a dominant who's going to be doing things to me that on the face of it look quite sexist. I need to know that that's not what they think all women just deserve. I need them to know that this isn't just what every woman wants, this is just what I want, because I'm special. I want them to know that I'm special. I've heard a few dominants over the years say things like, well, deep down all women want to be spanked, and as soon as a man says that to me, I just think, well, now I don't want you to spank me, because I don't want you to use my sexuality as evidence in your own head that women are naturally submissive, or women are the weaker vessel, or that all women need a strong alpha male to protect them. Like, the idea that my kink might be used against me and against other women to prop up a Andrew Tate / Ben Shapiro / Jordan Peterson kind of worldview, that is immensely disturbing to me, and I would not want to play with someone who I thought believed that kind of stuff for real. So any evidence of thinking men and women are equal makes me feel a lot more comfortable with potential male dominance. It's such a fun game, but I need you to know that it is a game. And finally, I left this one to the end because it is a little controversial. A thing that makes a dominant hot for me is a certain level of ruthlessness. I don't mean that they would ignore my safe word. I mean that having the confidence to take me slightly further than where I think my limits are is incredibly exciting. And to do that, you do need confidence, you do need technical skill, but also I think you need a certain degree of what I would call ruthlessness, where you are capable of pushing someone to the very edge of their limits. And that's a really difficult thing to do, and I really don't think that wannabe doms on their first encounter should try to do that. But when you are in the hands of a dominant who has the confidence to be capable of behaving like that, it's very, very exciting. Obviously, you don't go to that point with dominants who might not respect your safe word, but I really like the courage of dominants who are capable of taking me with them on that journey to the very far reaches of my endurance. Very exciting. I guess just because courage is really hot, and doing this kind of thing as a dominant takes a lot of courage. And that brings me on to my favourite ever thing a dominant has ever said to me. Oh my goodness. And that is so hot. It's so hot. If you can suck cock like an adult, you can take a beating like one. Favourite. Anyway, hope you found that useful. If you are a dominant who is looking into how to impress submissive women, obviously I may not be typical, but I hope that was useful for you. I hope if you are a submissive too, that you will have recognised some things that you also like. But please do comment below if you have your own comments as a submissive or as a dominant about the things that you think are valuable. I would love to hear from you. I'm currently in the process of trying to find an American publicist to work on Playing to Lose, my memoir, which is being released in the US in December, and I'm just trying to find someone at the moment to help me reach the widest possible audience. So I'm going to go back to writing to US-based publicists and hoping that one of them will write back and say yes, because so far some of them seem very, very nervous about the subject matter. So thanks for listening as always. Please like, subscribe, hit the notifications button, all these things that YouTubers are meant to tell their viewers to do, and I will be back with more next month. Thank you as always for listening. Goodbye now. Goodbye. Goodbye now. Bye-bye.